Hari Om. Jagat Karanam Karana Jnana Rupam Suradim Sukhadim Gunesham Ganesham Jagat Vyapinam Vishwabandyam Suresham Parabrahma Rupam Ganesham Bhajema. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaste. Welcome to session 79 of Bhagavad Gita verse by verse. Today, we will continue study of chapter 11 and discuss verses 11.06 to 11.10. At the end of session, we will have the chanting of these verses. Today, Dr. Sundar will moderate the session. Before Dr. Sundar introduces us to the day's verses, let me take you back to the verses we studied in our last class and very quickly look at what those verses say. Let us try to know the meaning of Vishvarupa Darshana or Vishvarupa Īśvara Darshana. Vishvarupa Darshana means, in simple words, the vision of the Lord as Vishvarupa. Rūpa is form and Viśva means universe. The Lord whose very form is universe itself. So now the question is, how one can have the darshana of Lord in the form of world itself? Scriptures talk about sadhanas of getting Rama Darshana, Krishna Darshana, Devi Darshana, etc. and define such darshana of deity as Devata Sakshatkara, the direct vision of Lord. We have seen in Puranas how devotees perform tapas, which is nothing but dhyana or meditation. The devotee has to decide the deity whose darshan he wants, visualize that form, and meditate on such form as described in the dhyana shloka with purascharanam of invoking mantra of that particular Ishtadevata, as followed by Dhruva and Prahalada. With this kind of tapas, Lord will appear in the desired form with his Maya Shakti and give darshana. This is Rama Rūpa Īśvara Darshanam or Krishna Rūpa Īśvara Darshanam, the vision of the Lord as Rama, Krishna, etc. Now, if you want Vishvarupa Darshanam, Vishvarupa Īśvara Darshanam, you want to have the vision of the Lord in the form of the world, and for that, what should you do? Should you invite the Lord to come in the form of world? It's a no, because the Lord has already arrived in the form of world. The Lord in the form of Vishvarupa has already arrived. Tasmadva etasmadatmana akashas sambhutaha akashad vayuhu vayoragnihi agnerāpaha advyah prithvi. Taittiriya Upanishad says this. The only way is learning to see the world in the form of the Lord, not purascharanam, not tapas, not koti rupa avritti. They are all meant for Rama Darshana and Krishna Darshana. Next slide shows us that I had to train my mind to look at the very world as manifestation of the Lord by clearly understanding and assimilating the teaching of scriptures which proclaim that the Lord alone manifests in the form of the world. Just as every ornament is different versions of that one gold alone. With the assimilation, my perceptive or vision will change. And this change of perspective or this new perspective that I receive through the teaching is called divya chakshu or jnana chakshu, the eye of wisdom, the eye of understanding. And that understanding is that the Lord alone manifests as everything. And therefore, it is not a physical eye. It is not a mystic vision that we are talking about, but is that invisible factor, that intellectual appreciation, which brings reverence in you when you are told that the laddu before you is Tirupati Prasada. Your hands will automatically go to your eyes before you eat it. This is divinization of laddu. I am doing the same thing when I say Samudra Vasane Devi Parvata Stana Mandale when I wake up, and Annapurne Sadapurne before I have food, when I drink water, when I see the sun, when I see the moon, when I am entering the river or whatever I am doing. I have got contact with the Lord, which is Nitya Īśvara Sambandha. This is the very essence of this chapter 11, Vishvarupa Darshana Yoga, to see God everywhere. Now, let us quickly recollect the 5 verses we discussed in our last session as we go to the next slide. Verse 11.01. In this verse, Arjuna summarizes the first 6 chapters, 1 to 6, essence of which is Jiva Swarupa Varnanam. Arjuna is telling Krishna that he has been listening to all the lessons taught by Krishna. He says, this supreme secret knowledge named Adhyatma, imparted by you for blessing me, has removed my delusion. Verse 11.02. In this verse, Arjuna summarizes the teachings of remaining 4 chapters, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Īśvara Swarupa is the essence of these chapters. He describes the glory of Krishna, to whom his reverence as teacher and God has increased multifold. He says, Hey Kamalapatraksha, I had the fortune of hearing the origin and dissolution of beings and your inexhaustible glory from you. If Arjuna's delusion is evaporated and his understanding is complete, what else he wants? If he had no further doubts, requests, there wouldn't have been next 7 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, isn't it? But what does Arjuna ask now? Let us see in next verse 11.03. Here, Arjuna addresses Krishna as Parameshvara and Purushottama. He has now come to accept Krishna to be the Supreme Lord, Creator, as well as Sustainer of this world. Here, he is conceding that he has come to accept the teachings of Krishna imparted till now. He has come to accept the whole world is a manifestation of Krishna himself. That is what Vishnu Sahasranama Dhyana Shloka says. It's read as under. Bhuv pado yasya nabir vyada nilas chandra surya uchanetre karna vacha shirodyaurmukamapi dahano yasya vasteyamabdihi antastham yasya Viśvam sura narakadago bhogi gandharva daityai chitram ram ramyate tam tribhuvana vakusham Vishnumisham namami. He pleads, I am desirous of seeing your divine form as described by yourself. Next verse 11.04. In this verse, Arjuna qualifies his desire and says, O Yogeshwara, if you consider that it can be seen by me, then you please show that inexhaustible form. We have seen how difficult it is to have Vishwarupa, Īśvara Darshana, and what it takes. The purity of mind that is needed to see this can never be bought overnight. It is a tedious karma yoga, upasana yoga route, and is a gradual evolution. Arjuna here is asking for any temporary way. Yogeshwara Krishna may have some Maya Shakti to provide that. Verse 11.05. Bhagavan Sri Krishna responds to Arjuna in the affirmative here in this verse. He says, O Arjuna, see my divine form in various kinds, forms, colors in hundreds and thousands. Let us see how Krishna describes his Vishwarupa and what he does to enable Arjuna to have Vishwarupa Darshana in today's class. Hari Om. Thank you. Now I request Dr. Sundar to give us a brief introduction to today's verses. Over to you, Dr. Sundar.
Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. Through the chapters of the Madhyama Shatakam, Lord Krishna has repeatedly emphasized on the importance of a reverential attitude, a divine vision to everything that surrounds us. And he has taught us that this is the best way to reduce ragadveshas. And through this process, he is fulfilling the promise he made in the first verse of the 7th chapter, that he shall bring us face to face with the true nature of the Lord. So as we can see in this picture, from Ekarupa Īśvara Bhakti, the Lord is making us a possibility to take the impossible jump to the Arupa Īśvara. From being Artha Artharthi Bhakta, he is leading us through the verses of these chapters to be a Jnani Bhakta. So on the route, you can see several stepping stones. So the Lord, through this attitude of divinization of everything around us, by becoming a Jijñāsu Bhakta, is leading us to the possibility, to the impossible. So what he is demanding from us is to have a perspective where everything around me can be a stepping stone. Now, what is this perspective that is being talked about? This divine vision or perspective is actually not new to us. All of us have had an occasion where a laddu is presented to us. And we know this laddu, which is made up of sugar and flour, suddenly the moment somebody tells us that this is from the Lord in Tirupati, the very same laddu now suddenly becomes divine. So how did this happen? So Swami Paramarthananda ji describes that the knowledge of the Lord in the Tirupati makes us to intellectually appreciate and then attribute divinity to the very same laddu, which now suddenly becomes divine. So Pujya Swami Paramarthananda ji describes this perspective as a combination of spiritual knowledge and a purified mind. Now, to apply this very same thing to Viśva, rūpa, Īśvara, there are verses in the 7th chapter which describe the evolution in Vedic cosmology. To begin with, there is Brahman and Maya. Brahman remaining the same, Maya, which is the Shakti rooted upon Brahman, in a staged manner evolves into this universe as we see it today. Therefore, as is said in the verse in that chapter, Matta parataram kinchidanyasti dhananjaya, everything in this creation is Lord alone. We saw in the previous class's verse, Arjuna asking the Lord, Drashtumichchami te rūpam. In the chapter 10, the Lord described 70 saguna vibhutis and 2 nirguna vibhutis. He has made amply clear that everything in this creation is the Lord himself. If that be so, it appears odd that Arjuna is asking this question, because it is very clear everything around us is a divine manifestation. Then what is it that Arjuna wants to see when he says, Drashtumichchami te rūpam? We have to understand that the Lord has tagged this divine vision with a gradual reduction in our ragadveshas. So when Arjuna makes this statement here, what is apparent is that there has been no change in the ragadveshas. He has intense ragadveshas like it was earlier. So this knowledge has not had any impact on him. The consequence thereupon is, because of the promise made by Lord earlier, if there is no reduction in ragadveshas, there is no occasion for arupa Īśvara jnanam to happen. So this then is an universal problem which Vyasacharya is presenting through Arjuna in this chapter. We have also seen in the previous class that Arjuna seems to know that to develop a purified mind is a process in evolution. It is not a process in revolution. It is not a quickly possible thing. So he is requesting the Lord, if there is any way in which he can temporarily have this vision. In a way, this glimpse that we are going to get through this chapter is for us to motivate and strive for a more permanent vision. We, along with Arjuna, go through this 4-stage process in this chapter. And we come to realize that Viśva, rūpa, Īśvara darshanam is the very same vision of this world as it is. Ordinary vision, but with an extraordinary perspective. So in the stage 1, prior to Vedanta, prior to the Gita, we have a secular vision. I see the world as it stands. So what is important at this stage is what I see. Then through the teaching, I move on to stage 2, where I develop a sacred vision. I now have a vision of divinity. There is an added perspective, which we have seen earlier as spiritual knowledge and purified mind. Now, instead of what I see, how I see becomes important. what I see may not liberate me, but the way I see it, how I see, can certainly lead me to liberation. This is the teaching of Swamiji. Having reached the second stage, when everything appears as divine, we shall see through the verses of the chapter that Arjuna is in wonderment. Soon you see the not so nice parts of this creation as also being Vishvarupa Īśvara. Then comes a temporary stage when Arjuna, also us, may for a small period of time tend to reject this Vishvarupa Īśvara. How can the negative aspects be Lord? How can the Lord not be compassionate? Then there are beautiful verses which take us through the third stage, where the Lord teaches us that don't view good and bad as pairs of opposite. Instead, view them as inseparable complementary parts. And he also teaches us that everything is there for a purpose, to maintain a harmony in this creation. Then, along with Arjuna, we course through the stage 4, where there is some maturity, everything in totality is accepted as Vishvarupa Īśvara. And this eventually paves the way for Arupa Īśvara Bhakti. With this, we'll move to the verses of today's chapter. Over to you, Dr. Vikram.
Yeah. Om Gurubhyo Namaha. Today, my verse is 11.6. Pasya adityan vasum rudran asvino marutastata bahunya adrusta purvani pasya ascharyani bharataha. O Arjuna, see Adityas, Vasus, Rudras, Ashwinis, and Maruts. See many wonders which were not seen before. So next slide, please. So even though Vishvarupa is right in front of me, if I should get the impact of Vishvarupa Darshanam, I should have prepared the mind, which I call divya chakshu or purification. Purification is a very slow and gradual process. It involves a long religious life, and it also involves following dharmas or values of life. If devotion and values are not there for such a mind, the benefit of Vishvarupa Darshanam will not be available. But even though it is a gradual and time-consuming process, Arjuna was lucky enough because he had Lord Krishna Avatara in front of him, and therefore he makes a request for a temporary purification of the mind. But the problem is, when by a miraculous process we get the purification of mind, it will be only temporary. It is like a person living with external support system like dialysis machine, ventilator, heart purifier. It is an externally aided living. It cannot last long. Similarly, by the power of miracle, by the grace of the Lord, a person can get a temporary purification and get the impact of Vishvarupa, but it is only temporary, and we find Arjuna getting that temporary benefit. And not only that, since the purification of mind is artificial, even the benefit is not fully appreciated. When it is an artificial process, that is Bhagwan aided artificial purification, the full impact is not gained. That is why we find in the 11th chapter, Arjuna gets the thrill initially, but later Arjuna is not happy at all with Vishvarupa Darshanam. Everyone says Arjuna is lucky enough to get Vishvarupa Darshanam, but Arjuna himself is not able to withstand the impact. And therefore, at the end of this chapter, Arjuna says, hey Krishna, Vishvarupa Darshanam is wonderful, but I do not want. So therefore, when it is an artificial thing, it will be temporary. Only when we work hard and purifying the mind, then alone Vishvarupa Darshanam is permanent, and we are able to take the Vishvarupa Darshanam also. However, because of Arjuna's request, Krishna accepts and says, I am blessing you with that. And with that, you will see varieties of my form and colors in hundreds and thousands, varied in nature, and they're all divine, belonging to the Lord. Here also, we should carefully understand when Krishna says, may you see the Vishvarupa with varieties of colors and form, what are we to understand? It is not that particular God named Vishvarupa appeared with varieties of colors like, but what does it mean? You have to learn to look at all the forms and colors of the universe as the beautiful colors of Vishwarupa itself. Therefore, the different colors of the sun and the moon, they are all nothing but Īśvara Varna. Just as different forms of ornaments belong to the gold only, so what I saw as bangle previously, because of my change in attitude, I see as gold only. Similarly, Sri Rudram describes Lord Shiva with various hues and colors. These are not different colors of Lord Shiva shows, but they are the colors of the sun when it is rising. They are the colors of Vishwarupa Shiva. The entire Rudram is a description of Vishwarupa Shiva, and it talks about the colors of the leaves and the green color. All of them are what? Lord Shiva's color. The Lord with the green hair. What do you mean by green hair of Lord Shiva? It is nothing but all the leaves in the trees are Lord Shiva's hairs. So when I am seeing a forest or green tree, my mind should appreciate it as Vishwarupa Īśvara only. Therefore, different colors are not new colors, but the old colors seen in different attitude. As Sundar said, when laddu comes in your hand, you also see the of it. Straight away, you put it in your mouth. But before you put, when somebody says it from Tirupati, then there is no change in the physical laddu, but it becomes divine. The divinity is not physically seen, it is appreciated by the mind, which got devotion. Wherever you see Vishwarupa has got many heads. We think that one Shiva or Vishnu will stand and hundreds of heads will be standing side by side. No, it is not one body with hundreds or thousands of heads hanging. It is all the heads of the people or heads of Lord. And now the 11.6 verse says, Pasyad Dityan Vasun Budra Ashwinau Marutastaha. Varieties of devatas are in the creation in the form of various natural forces. Every devata represents one natural phenomena only. So the Ashtavasus are said in the scriptures. We symbolize them as various devatas with different forms. What are the 8 vasus and 8 natural principles you can understand? Agni, Prithvi, Antariksham, intermediate loka, the sun, upper heavens, the moon and the stars are the 8 vasus. And therefore Krishna says, may you see the 8 vasus in my Vishwarupam. And then 12 Adityas, they are nothing but the sun god obtained in the 12 months of the year. So this sun god obtaining in 12 months, why we describe the sun in 12 months? In each month, the sun god has got different power. The sun of May and the sun of January, there is a difference. They are the Dwadasa Aditya Devata. May you see the Adityas, may you see the Vasus, and may you see the Rudras. The 10 sense organs, along with the mind, are called Rudra Devatas. And all of them belong to the Vishwarupa Īśvara only. Therefore, may you appreciate the Adityas, may you appreciate the Vasus, may you appreciate the Rudras, may you appreciate the Ashwini Kumaras, or the one presiding over the prana. So that principle and the Maruta Tata, Maruta Devas, which are different forms of Vayu. Therefore, may you see all the Devatas in the Vishwarupa of mind. All of them are Adrishta Purvani, which you have never noticed before. Because where is the time for us to stand and stare? We are so busy with our personal life, our street, our wife, our husband, our children, that we never appreciate the Vishwarupa. Therefore, Adrishta Purvani Bahuni, and each one is a wonder. Sun is a wonder, rain is a wonder, which God alone can do. Anything you take it is a wonder, which is the glory of the Lord. May you see that. Temporarily drop your day-to-day business, just watch the universe. Therefore, Pasya Ascharyani Bharata. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vikram. So you rightly emphasized that we are not interested in a glimpse of the Vishwarupa Īśvara. We are interested in a sustained appearance of the Vishwarupa Īśvara, which can come through the prerequisite of purified mind, which is nothing but Chitta Shuddhi Sadhana Chatustaya Sampatti through Karma Upasana Yoga. So I wish to draw a comparison to these set of verses from the 10th chapter versus this verse in this chapter. So you can see in the verses of the 10th chapter, Lord Krishna is telling, among the Adityas, I am Vishnu. And among the Maruts, I am Marichi. And among the Rudras, I am Shankara. So you can see that the theme there is, I am this among these. And suddenly in this verse, he is declaring, all the Adityas, all the Vasus, all the Rudras are in me. So this process is to draw us gradually from Ekarupa, Ishtadevata, Bhakti. The jump towards the Vishvarupa itself is difficult. Forget the Arupa Īśvara. So what Lord Krishna has done is to describe some certain wonderments around us, to draw us, to attract us to them initially, so that we are gradually pulled from Ekarupa Īśvara. And then slowly he is going to tell that I'm not just this among these, but in fact, everything is in me. And therefore leading us towards Arupa Īśvara. Now go to the next verse. Over to you, Srinivas, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. So my verse is the verse number 7. The verse is like this. Ihaikastham jagat kritsnam pasyadya sacharacharam mama dehe gudakesha yachanyat drastumichasi. So let us see the meaning of each word. Ihaikastham. This word can be split into iha plus ekastham. Iha means here. Ekastham. This word can be split into ekatra sthitam. That means present here. Sthitam means present. Ekatra means at one place. So ekatra sthitam is ekastham. Iha plus ekatra sthitam is ihaikastham. Next word is jagat kritsnam. Jagat means jayate gacchati iti jagat. That is one which keeps on taking birth and death. That is jagat. That is the whole entire universe, not just only our earth or solar system or like that. So is including, Bhagavan is including here the whole universe. Kritsnam means whole. Pasyadya. Pasya plus adya. Pasya means see, look. Adya. Adya means today or now. Here we have to take the now as the meaning. It's not today. Today means it may be in the evening also. He is in the battlefield. So now, that will be a better meaning for that. Sacharacharam. Sacharacharam means sa plus characharam. Chara plus acharam is characharam. Sa is sahitam, along with like sakutumba, saparivara, we tell. So including sahitam. Sa means word is used for sahitam, that is including. Chara means one which moves or one which have lives. Acharam means one which does not move or one which does not have life. So living and non-living things. So all you can see here. So this meaning of this first line is, now, oh Arjuna, now look here, present at this one place, the whole universe, including the moving and the non-moving. This is the meaning of this first line. Next slide, sorry. Mama dehe, that means, mama means nannalli or nayokka. In Telugu it is Sasti Vibhakti. Mama in my body. Dehe means body. Gudakesha. Gudakesha means jitanidra. That's one who has conquered sleep. Sleep also means ignorance, avidya, laziness. So anything is possible. So basically what we have to take is Gudakesha meaning is he is not that he is awakening from sleep. That's a word meaning. As a warrior, he is very active. That one meaning we can take. And also he has conquered his ignorance. That meaning also we have to take at the individual level. So sleep represents ignorance, or darkness represents ignorance. So the next word is yachanyat drastumichasi. This word can be split as yat plus cha plus anyat plus drastum plus ichasi. Yat plus cha, yacha. Yat plus cha plus anyat, yachanyat. echanyat drashtum. Then echanyat drashtum ichasi. This is a complete word. So that the number of letters in this are only 8. So that it fits into the chandas, Anushtup chandas. So that's the idea. Otherwise, Vyasa doesn't want to make it complicated for us. So here, yat means whatever. Yavude adaru. Yat. Cha means and. I have not written cha there. Anyat. Anyat means anything else. So anything else, he has already included. What is this word meaning is, in Shankara Bhashya, Shankaracharya has mentioned, Anyat Jayapajayadi, Jaya Aparajayadi Yat Shankyase. Like in the verse 2.6, Arjuna has said, Yadva Jayema Yadiva no Jayayuku. So he has expressed a doubt whether I will win or I will not win. So if you want to see the result of that, whether you are going to win or not, that also you can see. So basically he's asking him to see the future, past, presence. So he is removing the space and time limitations. So drashtum ichchasi, whatever you want to see. So next slide, sir. So O Gudakesha, now present at one place, that is ekastam, adya, ekastam, now and present at one place, sacharacharam kritsnam jagat, including living and non-living things, the whole universe, and yat anyat drashtum ichchasi, that is anything else you want to see, iha mama dehe pasya, in my body you see. So this is the meaning of the word, is very simple. So basically what the Bhagavan is doing here is, we know that we as a Jivatma, we have space and time limitations, and Bhagavan does not have space and time limitations. So how do we identify one body from other body is between space. So I am sitting here, in front of me is a table, between me and the table there is a space, and between me and my phone there is a space. So we identify this as separate bodies. So we do not look at them as one same. So Bhagavan is removing the space between me and everything else, all other living beings and non-living beings. So that space in between two objects is being removed artificially. So, and also the time limitations. So he is able to see the past, present and future also inside. So removing the time space, the Virat Rupam, this is called as Viśva Rupam or Virat Rupam or the cosmic form. She is removing artificially for the temporarily for the Arjuna to see how a realized Rishi or a realized person looks at the whole universe. So that's the whole idea. If to compare, we can see that with the amount of clay, so 1 lakh, say with the help of clay, a lot of dolls are made. So just take all the dolls and mix it. So we will see a tail of a doll, a head of a doll somewhere. So that's the concept here. That's also. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for very nice Padavibhaga, Pratipadartha, and Tatparyam. So, Ihaikastam Jagat Krishnam is presented symbolically in the Puranas when Mother saw in the mouth of the Lord the entire universe. So this is not possible as yet for Arjuna, because the ordinary eyes show us what is there out there, but it is the divine eye of wisdom which can tell us how to see. So when that layer of extraordinary perspective comes over the Laukika eye, then Ihaikastam Jagat Krishnam is possible. Swamiji explains Gudakesha in an encouraging manner for Arjuna. So he is 1 over Tamoguna by saying Gudakesha. So that means that he is Sattvaguna Pradhana. Yet Arjuna is wailing and complaining that I do not have that extraordinary perspective. Lord is encouraging him by telling, don't worry, you are Sattvaguna Pradhana. Little more polishing is required and you shall be there. So we shall go to the next verse. Over to you, Ashwini Madam.
Thank you, sir. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. न तु मां शक्यसे द्रष्टुम् अनेनैव स्वचक्षुषा दिव्यं ददामि ते चक्षुः पश्य मे योगमैश्वरम्. Herein, Lord Krishna introduces two types of chakshuhu. Laukika chakshuhu, divya chakshuhu. Laukika chakshuhu is the vision with ordinary attitude. Divya chakshuhu is vision with extraordinary attitude. Lord Krishna warns and tells Arjuna, one cannot have Īśvara darshanam or Vishwarupa darshanam with the help of mere physical eyes. Anena swachakshusha means laukika chakshuhu. Mam drashtum na shakyase. One will not be able to see. Even if they did, the impact is not the same. Therefore, one requires an invisible eye or divya chakshuhu. In the next slide, we will see what is divya chakshuhu. Some people interpret even the tilakam as symbol of divya chakshuhu. It's basically a prepared mind with proper bhavana or proper attitude. In our culture, we worship various idols. We do deeparadhane, we do sashtanga namaskaras to a stone. We receive ash as prasadam. If you look at it, it's all material work. But a devotee is not bothered. His eyes penetrate the superficial rock and see the Lord that has been invoked and worshipped. And ash, which is unworthy by itself, is being applied on forehead and sometimes even put it into the mouth without knowing how is it prepared. A devotee does not care. He calls that ash as vibhuti. And this can happen only with bhavana chakshuhu or divya chakshuhu. Next slide, sir. Vishwarupa darshanam requires divya chakshuhu. The namaskarams that we offer to our elders and Lord, the river water that we sprinkle on, to see the Lord in huge mountains, one requires divya chakshuhu. Once this attitudinal change comes in us and we take a relook at the same world, we begin to see it differently. Pashya me yogam aishwaram, and what we see is the divine glory. Pancha Mahabhutas becomes Īśvara. With an attitudinal change, we move from worshipping Īśvara only in the temples to worshipping Pancha Bhutas, worshipping Viśva as Īśvara. In fact, one can never go away from the Lord. As Swami Paramarthananda says, everything is Ramamayam, Krishnamayam, Shivamayam or Bhagavanmayam. Without that, it is all Maya, only Maya. Therefore, Lord Krishna says, kindly see Vishwarupa with this divya chakshuhu, which I am blessing. Next slide, sir. To summarize this verse, however, you cannot see me with this ordinary eye of yours. I shall give you a divine eye. See my divine power. This divine eye is divya chakshuhu, is the vision of the world without likes and dislikes. No raga, dvesha, ahankara and mamakara. Hari Om, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, madam, for clearly explaining that bhavana or reverential attitude can make the laddu to a Tirupati laddu. In the same manner, bhavana or extraordinary perspective or reverential attitude can change the very same secular vision of everything around me to a sacred vision of the Vishwarupa Īśvara. So this is a key verse where the Lord declares, he reveals about the divya chakshuhu. So traditionally, elements are worshipped. There are temples for each of the elements. Initially, we go there to worship an element, but eventually the training is for us to see these which are there everywhere around us as a divine manifestation of the Lord. We go to the next verse now. Over to you, Indumati madam.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Sanjaya Uvacha. Evamuktva tato rajan mahayogeshwaro harihi darshayamasa parthaya paramam rūpamaīśvaram. Sanjaya Uvacha. Sanjaya said, Uktva evam, having said thus, Harihi, Harati Papani iti Harihi, that is Shri Krishna, Mahayogeshwaraha, Mahayoginam Īśvaraha, the great Lord of all powers, Tataha, thereafter, Anantaram, Darshayamasa, he revealed Paramam Aishwaram Rūpam, the Viśva, the supreme divine form, to Parthaya, Prutha Sudhaya, Arjuna. That is, he revealed the Aishwaram Rūpam, Parthaya Darshaya Masa. Then tells, O king, Sanjaya says, having spoken thus, the great Lord of all powers thereafter revealed the supreme divine form to Arjuna. O king. In the next slide, we have seen in the previous verse that the Lord explaining to Arjuna that Arjuna cannot see the Lord Sri Krishna with his ordinary eyes, that is laukika chakshu, and tells him that he will be given the divine vision. This spiritual special vision is given to the Pandava prince so that he may see the Lord's supreme yoga power by which the whole universe of multiplicity is being supported by the Lord's own form. In the next slide, we see that the particular yoga power of the Lord has already been described at two different places, like chapter 7, verse 12, Echaiva Satvika Bhava, wherein the Lord says, Natvaham Teshu Te Mai. And in chapter 9, verse 4, the Lord says, Mastani Sarva Bhutani Nachaham Tesh Vyavastitaha, meaning all beings dwell within me, but I am not present in them, which are almost identical terms. In the next slide, we see that the scene shifts to Hastinapura in the palace of King Dhritarashtra. The versatile genius Vyasacharya introduces a small section in which Sanjaya reports to King Dhritarashtra, the blind father of the wicked Kauravas. We have seen earlier that Sanjaya's sympathies are clearly with Pandavas, the friends of the Lord. The tendency in Sanjaya is unquestionably revealed when he addressed his own master as merely, O King, Rajan, while he uses the term Mahayogeshwara, great Lord of Yoga, and Harihi to indicate Lord Krishna. So, now with Sanjaya's words, we are now shifted from the battlefield to the place of the palace or the place of the battlemonger. Sanjaya informs Dhritarashtra that the great Lord of Yoga showed Arjuna his supreme Īśvara form. Sanjaya entertains a hope that at least on hearing that the Lord of the universe is on the side of his nephews, the blind king will foresee the sure defeat of his sons and in his discrimination will cry a halt to the impending disastrous war. In the next slide, Sanjaya is talking to Dhritarashtra. He says, the Viśva Īśvara is none other than Lord Vishnu himself. what type of Vishnu he is. He is Mahayogeshvara, one who has got great powers of purification. Evam Uktva, having addressed Arjuna in this manner, Lord Krishna showed his Paramam Aishwaram Rupam Dashayamasa, showed this Vishwarupam, which is Paramam, the greatest Rupam, to Arjuna. And Arjuna now is a little relieved and gets ready to fight. And this Paramam Aishwaram Rupam was shown by the Lord Sri Krishna. Harihi Om. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, madam. So as you mentioned, this is a transition verse. We see now the narrative shifting to the palace. Rajan in this verse refers to Dhartarashtra. And as you mentioned, Mahayogeshvara, it is not easy to attain purification of mind. Chitta Shuddhi, Sadhana Chatusteya Sampatti is a gradual process. It is not a revolutionary process. But the Lord had such magical powers that he was able to put in a temporary purification of the mind so that Arjuna could see the divine form of the God. So we now have a section of verses where Sanjaya is going to describe what he sees and then followed by what Arjuna sees. We go to the next verse. Over to you, Shobha madam.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Can I have the slide, please? Yeah. Aneka Vaktra Nayanam, Aneka Adbhuta Darshanam, Aneka Divya Bharanam, Divya Neko Dyata Ayudham. The meaning of this verse is Aneka Vaktra Nayanam, with numerous mouths and eyes. Aneka Adbhuta Darshanam, with numerous wonderful sights. Aneka Divya Abharanam, with numerous divine ornaments. Divya Aneka Udyata Ayudham, with numerous divine uplifted weapons. In this verse, there is a description of what Arjuna saw through Sanjaya's words. With the divya drishti that Arjuna was blessed by Lord Krishna, he saw many mouths, eyes, wonderful sights, divine ornaments, and divine wielding weapons. So does this mean what Arjuna saw was a chaos of body parts and non-living things scattered everywhere? This is what it would look like if you see this vision without the attitudinal change that was described in the previous slides. Next slide, please. So with common vision, that is Laukika Drishti, Arjuna saw himself and everyone and everything as separate beings existing independently. Could you please play the video? The Vishwarupa Darshanam that he saw with the divine eyes given by Lord Krishna, he saw that these very beings are not separate, but parts of one whole being. The whole being is none other than the Lord himself. The many mouths, eyes, sights, ornaments, weapons, etc. now no longer belong to any separate being, but are actually the various parts of one being, that is the Lord. Each part worked as a team, contributing separately to the whole. His organs, his ornaments, his weapons were no longer his, but part of the Lord himself. Likewise, everything that existed around him and inside him are part of the Lord, and because it is part of the Lord, it becomes divine, including the weapons of destruction. In short, the Vishwarupa Darshana that Arjuna saw was through the Divya Drishti, and therefore he saw that the Lord is one total being, and everything else, including himself, has become a part of this whole being, and that is a part of the Lord. Hari Om. Thank you.
Thank you, madam, for that nice description and the beautiful video to show on how large the universe is being mentioned by Lord Krishna as being within him. So as you said, the way we should understand this verse is that all the eyes, including mine, belong to the Lord. So also the mouth and various other things. And Swamiji describes how whenever some new gold is purchased, how it is kept at the feet of the Lord before it is accepted to be worn, to again remind us that everything belongs to the Lord. So this verse is incomplete. There is no verb in this, which will follow up in the subsequent verses because it is in continuity, which will come in the next class. So in the next class, we shall deal with verses where Sanjaya describes the Vishwarupa as is seen by him, and also verses where he describes how Arjuna views, subsequent to which there are verses which describes Arjuna going through the 3 stages which are popular in this chapter, where initially he is in wonderment, then he is in fear, denial, and then there is maturity and acceptance of the totality. I now invite Vishvesh to do the chanting of today's verses.
Namaste everyone. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om Pashyadityan Vasun Rudran Ashvinau Marutastatha Bahunya Drishta Purvani Ashyastaryani Bharata Hihai Jagat Krishnam Pashyadya Sacharacharam Mama Dehe Gudakesha Yachanya Drashtumichasi Natu Mam Shakyase Drashtum Anenaiva Swachakshusha Divyam Dadami Te Chakshuhu Pashyame Yogam Īśvaram Sanjaya Uvacha Eva Muktva Tato Rajan Mahayogeshwaro Harihi Darshayamasa Parthaya Paramam Rūpam Īśvaram Aneka Vaktranayanam Anekadhuta Darshanam Aneka Divyabaranam Divyanekodhyatayudham Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, dear Vishvesh, for a flawless chanting. Thank you, Dr. Sundar sir, and all the teachers of the day for an interesting session. Thank you, friends, for your sincere participation. In our next class on Friday, 11th February 2022, let us take up next few set of verses. Please log in by 6 p.m. on that day. Until then, Jai Shri Krishna. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om.